going to dope this wing. Now, we've already gotten our 3 or 4 coats of clear with sanding sealer on the bare balsa wood. We painted the circumference with clear dope, put on our silk, doped it around the edge. We've got the silk is stretched with water. And now what we're going to do is we're going to brush on the dope. Now I've got it sitting on my airplane here because I'm going to paint this side, and then I'm going to flip it over and paint the other side. And this will hold it up off the table while we paint it. Now, I'm using a camel hair brush. Get this at Hobby Lobby in their art department. They're not very expensive. You go by there and pick these up really cheap. Now, I'm using a full strength tautening dope. Tautening means it's going to cause this silk to shrink up. I'm loading my brush really well because I want it to carry a lot of dope. Now, one thing we don't want to do is press too hard and force the dope through the silk into and cause it to make a puddle on the bottom side of the silk, because then you'll have a spot when you go to paint the plane. You'll have a definite spot. So what we do is we just start back here. Dip it. We're going to come this way. We're going to dope one bay at a time. Full strength. You're going to see a lot of brush strokes in it while you on this first coat, but don't really worry about them too much because eventually they're going to just disappear. All right, now probably noticed that the can changed. I'm using Randolph dope because I can get it locally and not have to pay exorbitant shipping fees to get it from SIG. The top and the bottom of this panel, top and bottom of this panel. So we're going to start right here where we left off. Now I'm going to advise you that if you decide to silk and dope an airplane, you do not do it in the kitchen on the dining room table unless your wife is extremely understanding. Because it won't be long till she's going to be complaining of the smell. And you know, you just can't hardly blame her. What the hell? Okay. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Look at the wrinkles in that silk. See all those wrinkles in there? Those will disappear the next year. Okay. You can see where we've just got through painting it, that the dope is almost transparent. Made the wing almost transparent through there. And you can also see the wrinkles that have come up in the dope. That's perfectly normal. They'll go away. Now, let me warn you too, is that we painted this side here and then turned it over and painted that side. We painted side and then turned it over and painted that side. That way the dope will shrink equally on both sides and you won't end up with a unwanted warp in the middle of your wing. All right, I'm going to set this aside to let it dry, and we'll be back later. You'll notice on our airplane we've got the dope on here, and if you can, I don't know if you can see that. You can see how the tail is kind of wrinkly. It's the same thing with the wing. Same thing with the wing. You can, there you go. You can see the wrinkles in the silk. That will happen after your first coat of dope. There's a good shot right there of all the wrinkles. But we're not worried because that's the first coat of dope, and we're going to put on a second coat, and the second coat will actually take all these wrinkles out. So let's start with the bottom, and this is the same dope we used for the first coat. However, we're going to dilute it down to about 3 parts dope, 1 part thinner. So I'm going to put my mixing cup around here where I got 3. That ought to do it right there. Okay, so I got my mark here. It's at 4, so we're gonna use this thinner. Whoa. Raise it up to 4. By thinning this out, it makes it a little easier to brush. Plus, we don't need it real thick at this time. What you say we get some dope on this here airplane wing? Get our brush loaded up. And there's a lot of people wanting to get into it that, well, they want to move up or change to where they're flying more of the old-timer airplanes than these newfangled jets or styrofoam jobs. And that's all well and good. I think it's fantastic. And then what they're doing is they want to keep the planes vintage. Even going back to taking the old metal box transmitters and receivers and changing them over to 2.4. Well, I'm not that too old-fashioned, believe me. And I think if you ever do one of these and try it, I think you'll get hooked on doing these. Now we're going to flip the wing over and put it in this go. That way I can keep my painted surface up off the table and I can paint this side of the wing. Now we're going to move over to this other wing panel. Now we're going to paint the bottom of the same side. And it's such a pretty day outside. Perfect weather for flying. But I had other things to do this morning. Alright, I'm fixing to lose my battery in my camera, so I'm going to have to stop and change the battery. But as you can see how wrinkled up that is, and it'll tighten up just tight as a drum. So, let me change these batteries and I'll be right back. Oh, welcome into the shop. What we're doing is we're lightly sanding our silk. I'm using P500 sandpaper. That's a wet or dry, and I'm using it dry. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Come on, zoom in here. There we go. What I'm looking for is I'm sanding off any dirt nibs, anything that got in the dope while it was drying. Now I want to warn you, stay off the edges of the silk and the wood. Stay off those edges. Don't get on them. If you have to, put you some tape across the top of it so you don't get on top of those ribs. Because if you sand across that rib like that a couple of times, you could sand through the silk into the wood, and then you got a big hole that's going to be repaired. And you don't want to use the repair technique to do it, because then you'll have a big square in your silk that will definitely show through your final finish. So We just want to lightly sand these. And as you sand it, I can hear the weave of my silk, which I like that because I don't want to feel my weave. I want to be able to look at it and tell that it's got silk on there. Just an old thing from way back. After you get that done, then take your sandpaper and lightly go across the top of the spar, just like this, holding it nice and flat and staying off of the sharp edges. Do the same thing with the front spar. Just knock off anything. Now, you want to do your ribs also, but what you want to do is just barely lightly go over the top. Pay real close attention to what you're doing. As you go over it, if you hit a nib or a dirt nib or something, you will feel it through the sandpaper. Then you can go back and very lightly do that rib to make sure that there's nothing done. And with that in mind, when you're building your wing and you do your final sanding, you want to be sure that the ribs and the spars are perfectly aligned, perfectly flat. You don't want to have the ribs sticking up on each side of the spar sunk down there, because when you sand it, you're going to sand a hole right through that point. So be sure that when you sand your wing, you sand everything nice and flat. Okay, that takes care of the sanding.